All right, guys. Hope you are all well, tracking okay. Because of where we are at in terms of remote learning, I'm going to be actually recording the slides whilst we're in remote learning, and then we will go back and revisit them when we do get back to school. But this way, you can still hear me actually going through the notes, excuse me, but you could always pause the video to actually handwrite or type up the notes, whatever you're doing. Okay. All right. So, what we are looking at today is the rise of Hitler and of the Nazi Party. Okay. Um, so, starting with the factors. So, the factors of Nazism. So, there were three factors which contributed to the rise of Nazism: the resentment of the Treaty of Versailles, which we have already looked at back in the orientation week in term two, the stab in the back myth, and the Great Depression. All right. Okay, so the first component was resentment. Um, German people resented the harsh treaty. So remember, they effectively were told that they had to pay back all this money, that they were only allowed particular levels of military, of cargo. They had to effectively admit all wrong. So the German people weren't particularly happy with that. They resented the government who had actually agreed to sign it, so there became to be a little bit of an uprising. And this then undermined the Weimar Republic. The stab in the back myth, known as the Dockstolenge. All right, reaction to the Treaty of Versailles. Um, so again, sort of just a flow-on effect. Yeah, so the myth that Germany had not been defeated, but was actually betrayed by the government, and those that created the Weimar Republic. So those that actually signed the treaty. Okay. Um, and I may have actually said that first one wrong. All right, the Great Depression. Again, we learned about this last week, so this shouldn't really be brand new information. It's just how you're going to apply it to the rise of Nazism. Okay. So the Great Depression was the hyperinflation which wiped out the value of currency. By 1932, 6 million Germans were unemployed. The Social Democratic Party wanted to raise taxes on the rich to fund payments to the poor, um, which interestingly is sort of what we do in Australia now. Over the next few years, there would be several elections in which no party gained majority in Reichstag. By 1933, President Hindenburg invited Hitler to become chancellor of a right-wing coalition government. Okay, and then that's where you look back at your communism and your fascism. Okay, and we know that Hitler had that fascism mindset. All right. Okay, and then going back. So the Nazi ideology. So we know the Nazi ideology was relatively strong. There were lots of different aspects to look at. But the main ones we want to pull out from this topic is that it's effectively survival of the fittest. Okay, the strong are going to survive. They believe that communism was a Jewish ideology and that they needed to defeat those enemies. Okay, so they sort of blamed it on the political aspect, but applied it to an entire race. Okay. Germans must gain Lebensraum, which is the living room, and the Führerprinzip. All opposition must be crushed, and all obedience needs to go to the leader. Okay, so you had to have a really, really strong sense of respect for authority. The tactics that they used. So Hitler attempted to seize power in 1923, but was unfortunately unsuccessful. In the short time spent in prison as a result, he switched his focus to gaining support as opposed to trying to gain power forcefully. Okay, he was founded Hitler Youth in 1926 to indoctrinate young Germans. So the Hitler Youth was pretty much what it says. Yeah, it was a group of young Germans who were being developed under Hitler's guidance. He gained support through public spectacles such as the Nuremberg rallies, through support from influential individuals and propaganda. Okay, so you should all have a vague recollection of propaganda. You looked at it last year in history. So effectively, just trying to, again, bring in the strongest of people. Yeah, not necessarily physically, but within society as well. And he played on middle classes. So he really did try to create a sense of fear in people about what communism could potentially do to German society. All right, consolidating the power. So Hitler became chancellor in 1932. Remember, you have already written that down in one of the previous slides. The Reichstag was damaged by fire, so Hitler used this to expand his powers over the state. He abolished freedom of press, speech, assembly, and allowed imprisonment without trial. So you can sort of start to see that dictatorship come to life. This restricted campaigning for the upcoming election in 1933. The Nazis won 43% of votes and formed a coalition with a nationalist party. An enabling act of 1933 gave Hitler dictatorial powers. Okay, so you could sort of see it starting to build from 1932 when Hitler was first put in power up to the point in 1933 where he actually became an official dictator. All right, and then the final one, the Nazification of Germany. So Hindenburg, their leader, died in August of 1933, and Hitler just stepped into that role then. He established Nazi courts to try political criminals. Any anti-Nazis and Jews were forced out of civil service. So anything effectively working for the government. Okay, trade unions were abolished. So just remember, trade unions is working towards getting the best wages, making sure workplaces are safe. That's what their purpose is. So they were abolished. Un-German books were burned. Other political parties dissolved. Communists, socialists, and other anti-Nazis sent to concentration camps. So you can start to see it starting to come to fruition. He used education for propaganda, and he ordered a tax on Jews and boycott of Jewish businesses. Okay, so he was really using his power in order to get what he was after. Okay, and you can see here, we are then linking back to these other factors as well. Okay, so it does all link together.